My name is Dr. Jonathan Reed. I'm from the Department of Criminal Justice and Criminology here at Sam Houston, and I'm an international faculty from Kingston, Jamaica.
I'm Cameron Williams. I'm with COSET, that's College of Science, Engineering, and Technology. I'm specifically in the math side of the Mathematics and Statistics department. And my research specialty is within mathematical logic, so kind of applying tools from math to logic, applying tools from logic to math. As far as my background, I did my PhD at the City University of New York. Before that, grew up in the American West.
I'm Jody Wood. I'm with the Department of Art in the College of Arts and Media. So I'm a visual artist. I work in performance art, video art, and also social practice. And I'm from Brooklyn, New York.
Well, over the years, I've mentored many underprivileged youth in different communities in Jamaica and in the US. And in about 2016 or so, I kind of came to the realization that I wanted to do more. Right? I was very hands-on, but I wanted to do more in terms of policy. And in order to try to affect policy, at times you have to do research to find out what solutions are needed and what therapies are needed. So in about 2016, in my mentorship of some youth, I kind of got the idea to do a PhD and become a researcher.
So originally when I went to college as an undergrad, I was in computer science. I wanted to be a programmer, but kind of interest drifted. The big thing for me is I did an REU. It's a research experience for undergrads, and that kind of brought me into the world of seeing that this was something I was interested in. After that, I switched majors over to math, got heavily interested in that, basically stopped 2 classes shy of the comp sci major, and went to grad school and then went on to do that. As for what attracted me to logic in particular, it's a multidisciplinary field. So you have logicians in math, like me. You have others in computer science, which is where I originally came from, or philosophy and even linguistics. And so I really like that it's not just like one group in one department, but it's this broad thing. I go to conferences, I see people with very different perspectives. It's a very a dynamic, interesting field.
How I got started with my research, or interested in my research, is that I'm actually just really interested in social stigmas. So why we stigmatize certain people, what are the taboos, and how this changes across cultures and over spans of time. And I think that stigmatizing other people or groups of people is a kind of a cognitive error, and so I think there's ways to examine that, and I use my work to start to look into that and investigate that. This has been so gradual for me that I don't come from a family of artists. Art is not in my background at all. I didn't even know you could become an artist professionally, and I didn't know that I would like teaching, but I've always really loved to learn, and I've loved any kind of cross-disciplinary interactions. I just love meeting people from very different backgrounds and analyzing society, just analyzing social behavior. And so it was very gradual how that interest was combined with art for me, and just became an obsession and a passion of mine that I've developed over the years, and got a chance to teach in New York at a couple of universities and just loved it. It's so meaningful. It's just a really meaningful use of your time, and being able to share your research with students is really fulfilling. So yeah, the whole thing was just really gradual, but it just built over time. There was no moment where I was like, I'm gonna be an artist professionally and teach, and yeah, but it was just something that kind of I fell into, and it made more and more sense, and it just felt right.
So currently, most of my research centers around violent criminal offending, specifically homicide. So I focus on socio-political inequalities and how these inequalities affect crime rates in different communities. Not only the socioeconomic levels, but how institutions across community contexts operate, such as the family, politics, the economy, the educational system, law enforcement, and how these institutions interact with communities and help to produce disadvantage or inequalities across community contexts, and how these inequalities can lead to different criminal offenses or higher crime rates, specifically violent crime rates. I'm specifically looking at systemic racial inequalities across segregated communities to see how different community contexts produce different factors that lead to higher crime rates. So for example, in certain community contexts, the institution of the family is very different than other contexts. Some communities have higher rate of single parent households. Some communities have a higher presence of nuclear families. And we understand that the family is the first place of socialization, right? So many pro-social norms are taught by the family. However, if certain communities have higher rates of, let's say, single parent homes or dislocated families, children or teenagers are less likely to be socialized with these pro-social norms from the family. Similarly, in certain community contexts, the educational system is more robust versus others. So schools also have a socialization function in socializing our youth towards pro-social values. However, if in one context schools are disadvantaged relative to another context, I'm looking at how the people in these different communities, how they interact with these institutions, and how that leads to differences in crime rates.
So my specialization within mathematical logic is set there. It's kind of the branch of math that's concerned with the infinite. And in particular, a project I've been working on recently, it calls by the name set theoretic potentialism. That's probably nonsense. So what this means is we're using tools from what's known as modal logic. This was originally developed by philosophers, people like Ruth Marcus Barkon, to study metaphysics. So, absolutely nothing to do with math, but we found these tools we can then apply to study these mathematical questions and get a lot of interesting stuff there. And then sometimes some of this pushes back to kind of inform what happens on the philosophy side.
My current interest right now, I'm really looking into institutional harm within hospitals and just these contradictions between the logic of care and the ethics of care and the logic of profit motives that hospitals have in this society, because care is not universal, it's not universalized here. So I am looking at institutional harm for patients that have low income and also staff members who are overworked in these hospital systems. And I'm also looking to community care models that kind of center around mutual aid. Like, what can communities do to care for each other, and how can this, like, the ideas of health be discussed in the public realm, and how can we connect health to maybe a more holistic vision of like what composes our lifestyle, like looking at our material conditions, looking at our environment and our bodies and this intersection, and kind of coming up with ways that we can address and discuss this as a public, rather than thinking of medicine as something that's just really off limits and is very elitist and difficult to access. So I really want to try to make that conversation happen.
So my ultimate goal is just to, first, for us as researchers to gain a broader understanding of the community context and how they influence crime rates, specifically violent crime rates. When we look on like 2020, the homicide rate spiked in the largest numbers seen in a very long time, right? And a lot of that can be attributed to the different community context, right? So my ultimate goal is policy, and I hope to have a research agenda that alongside so many talented faculty here and world-class scholars, I hope to be able to collaborate with them in order for policy to be implemented so we can fix some of these issues that we have in our society.
maybe one way of saying it is, I could say like sort of look at other people who have done and like as an ideal of what I would want to be like, and probably the one I would mention here is the Austrian logician Kurt Gödel. He's, I don't know whether or not you've heard of him. He's probably one of the most well-known modern logicians, but his work was interesting because it was this like building bridges between disciplines. He had these like strong ideas about what to do in philosophy, and this informed his mathematical work, and then his mathematical work kind of fit back to the philosophical work, and along the way he also made like fundamental contributions to theoretical computer science. So that sort of idea of not just sticking within one area, but kind of bringing in ideas from one area to kind of improve the other and get this very fruitful interplay is what I hope to go towards.
So art can be many things. I think that the job of art is to ask questions about why we live this way and if it's possible to live in a different way. So this type of art that I'm doing, social practice, it's not meant to solve problems necessarily, but it is meant to ask questions about who is included, who is excluded, how can we think about medicine differently as a community, what are other models we might look at, and what are our cultural values that are kind of creating barriers to some people to being able to achieve like health in their lives, and how can we start to examine those and think differently. So I'm really into the idea of art as something that opens up complexity about an issue, and so that's what I want my research to do. I want my research to, just pose questions, start conversations, and social practice is also it's a form of art that is really interested in collaborating with other disciplines. It's interdisciplinary, and in these partnerships with other disciplines, I feel like we're able to see the full picture of a social issue a little more clearly.
I'd like to thank my fellow faculty for welcoming me with open arms. It's been so collegial and it's been a great time so far. I look forward to many, many years of collaboration and a great time here at Sam Houston. Thank you.
So I think anyone kind of going in academia now knows how challenging it can be. Like, you can complain about the job market, I'm not going to do that, but it's tough. And I think the thing we need to remember is that it's not a problem about individuals or individual disciplines. It's something that affects us all. Kind of the systematic issues causing this are affecting all of us. And so if we want to do something about it, if we want to preserve the academy as a viable career path, make it so our students can go on and become researchers themselves, then we have to stand together in solidarity. That's really the first step to make sure that the academic system can continue.
I am really interested in finding collaborators in the SHSU community, and I would love to, I'm really open to just uncommon, or unconventional collaborations. So I'm really open to any department. I'm specifically really looking at medicine and public health and possibly criminal justice. So please feel free to reach out to me, or maybe I'll reach out to you.